Hey guys, welcome back to the CasualCode YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys my own framework, which I compiled really quick. I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is not any of my work, the utilities inside of this framework, it's other people's work, but we'll go over that in a second. I've just gone ahead and compiled these different resources into one simple framework that you guys can use for your game. So to get started with this framework, you go ahead and join my Discord server, and you can go in the free model section where I have it right here as a Roblox model, the RBXM. And once you have it downloaded on your computer, go to Workspace, insert from file, and just insert the CasualCode framework, or the Casual framework it's called. And we'll start by looking in the README file. And this just basically explains a bit about what a framework is, about how you could use a framework, how you can use this framework, and how to get started with it. But in this video, I'm also going to show you guys how to get started, so don't worry about any of this. And then we have some of the creators for some of the utilities inside of this framework. We have CasualFire, who made the module loader. And then we just have people that have contributed with different utils that we use in this framework. So what do I mean by utilities and module loaders and blah, 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 and what even is a framework, you might ask? A framework is just a way to structure and organize your game in a special way. So it follows the same principles all the way through, which makes your code base a bit clearer. But when it comes to organization, it's hard to say what is right, because everyone has their own opinion about what is good organization in a game. So just take this as one approach, an approach that I like. And yeah, let's get into the video. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've taken all the folders and I put them in their desired services, which is the name of the folder. And I'm just going to ungroup them all by selecting all of them and hitting ungroup or Control U. And I'm going to delete the folder that we initially had. And this is basically our game right here. So if you go ahead and run the game, you can see that the output is going to start getting filled up. And this is the module loader in place. So basically what this module loader does is it loads all your modules for you. I'm going to show you how that works in a second, but this was made by CasualFire, and he has a great tutorial on his channel where he explains how this module loader works. And you can see it says S, which is for server, but it does also load the client. I'll just need to play the game for that to show. You can also see it on the color over here. When it's green, that's a server, and when it turns blue down here, that means the client is executing code. So basically it's loading all these server modules first, and then it's loading the client modules afterwards, which also gives the client time to load in, because of how replication works and stuff. But don't worry about that too much. As long as you see that in the output, that means that the module loader is working. So let's start by looking in the different services. So in the workspace, it's pretty empty. We just have the game objects. And this is just a folder to show you how you could put your 3D objects and stuff into organization. And you can have, for example, you could have a new folder in here called map. Whatever you really need, you just have it in there, and you can call that directly from the modules. And then you have the replicated first, which is for use. It's in the name. It's what being replicated first from the client or from the server to the client. So in there you could have, for example, some module scripts. You could have some loading scene stuff, or whatever you really need. Inside replicated storage, you have a tab for communication, where you could store, for example, your bindable events and your bindable functions, or your remote functions, etc., or your remote events. And then inside of module loading is where the module loader is located. And the good thing about this module loader is that it uses actors as well, so it has the parallel execution support. Oops. So it's so basically what this does, I'm not going to go into detail, but it basically takes all of the different modules, and then it loads them first, and then it inits them, initializes them, and then it starts the modules. And if you don't want all this in the output, you can just see this new print here. You can just put 2 dashes here to comment it out. And when you play the game, you can see the output is empty. But it's just to show you guys what is loading. That's everything for the module loader. And then inside of the utilities, this is probably the biggest part of the framework. And you can also just have this as a standalone folder. You don't need the rest of the framework for this. because they're not even being required by the module loader. Only our own services and handlers are being required. You could also have the utilities being required, but that would mean you need to mess a bit with them to add the initializer and the start and stuff. But you don't really need to do that. You have all the different module scripts here, and we have some read-only module scripts, which I'll go over as well. A class is just a simple class approach, like how you will make a class. And shared types is just a way to store your own types. If you're using this form, you can also use Sufi's like global type extension, but for this case, we're not using that. We're just using our own type, so we just have that stored away in a module. You could also have this directly inside of your classes. You don't need the types stored externally, but that's up to you. It's just a way of organizing it. And then we have some very popular modules here, some utilities which you can use for a game, and some of them are really, really nice to have. So I'll go over a few of them. So starting from the top, we have Bezier curves, which is a mathematical formula, which just imported basically to Roblox. There's a lot of different approaches with Bezier curves. This one is from the B-Rises video, which I just put into this utility folder. Can be nice for making curves and etc. Binder is from the Nevermore engine, a module from there where you can bind classes to Roblox instances. You set up a class and then you bind your tag. So inside of your collection servers, you bind your tag with your class. And that can be really, really nice to have, and you can start and you can listen for new instances and stuff. So that's really, really nice to have. It's really useful. You have the camera shaker by Sleetnik, which is in the name, it shakes the camera. You have different like presets and instances you can use. You can mess with the values, etc. And that could be good for like explosions or cutscenes or anything else in that matter. You have Octree, which is also from the Nevermore engine. It is a data structure that allows for quick spatial data queries of static objects. For example, trees can be stored in an Octree, and nearby trees could be found near the player. So it's basically just a way of splitting how your game, like your data structure, how your game like finds objects, and kind of hard to explain, but it basically splits them in 1/8, and it's good for optimization and optimizing your game in general. And then we have one of the bigger ones in here, which is Profile Store, which is the successor to Profile Service. You don't need to use Profile Store. You can also just import Profile Service or Data Store 2 or whatever structure you have. Maybe your own structure. You don't need to use Profile Store, but it's very easy to set up and it's very good. I mean, Profile Service is one of the best data like structure scripts out there. You have the Promise library, where you can like chain certain stuff together, and it's very good for getting rid of those pesky errors that ruin your loops, for example. And profiles can be used for basically anything. You can bind, you can make a new promise for anything you really want. So yeah, that's very nice to have. Roblox State Machines is for your NPCs or your AIs. You can have like a constant loop of like walking, attacking, idle, walking, attacking, idle. Which is really, really neat if you have NPCs or like ARs or like monsters or whatever in your game. You have Signal class, which is also one of the more significant ones by Stravant. And it's basically just, it says it here, it has identical behavior to a normal RBX script signal. Crushfire, who made the module loader, has a more in-depth video about script signals, especially the good signal module. And this is the good signal module. There's some other ones like the fast signal and the simple signal, I think they're called. But it's basically just a way to make your own signals and like listen to them and execute code on them. And it's very nice to have in your utilities. The Spring module, which is the optimized one by Crushfire as well. I believe it was made by Axis Angles. And you can basically do anything with it. You could like you could add springs, like you can visualize springs in your game, or you can add certain like spring effects to like your view models or your camera, like in cutscenes or anything else. It's a really neat module to have. You have the tree, which is like a indexing module where you can find certain things inside of like parents, like instances or anything else of that matter. And you can even insert the path. So say you have like a inside of the example, for example, that's a bit weird, but inside of this folder example, say we had we were looking for this animation right here, and we could just link the path to the animation, which would be example module and then / animation. So it's another way of indexing. So instead of direct indexing, which is just using the dots parameter like this, or using find first child, which is indirect indexing, or yield indexing, where you use wait for child. So that's just a module, take it or leave it, you don't need to use it. And that actually goes with all the utils, you don't need to use them, they're just nice to have. Trove, which is a cleanup module. There's a few alternatives to Trove, like maid and janitor, but Trove is just really easy to use, and you can like clean up your connections. Like for example, it works well with the signal module. You can clean up your signals when you don't need to use them anymore, and you just add some stuff. You add the item to a new Trove when you make it, and then once you're done executing a certain event or something, you just clean up, like throw all that in a trash can, and it's all cleaned up, and you don't have to get memory leaks in your game. And then you have Zone Plus, which is a zone module, like region 3. And basically this is made by Forever HD. It's a very big one. You can find it on the dev forum, which you can with most of these modules. And you can just make your own dynamic zones and everything in between. And it's a very nice util to have. So that's everything with the utils. Now let's go over how services work and how handlers work. So services is the server-sided way of your services, and then handlers is the client-sided way, so where you could control everything that has to do with the client. And on the server you can have your own services. Like for example, you could have like a Thunder service, or you could have like a round service, anything in between, and you would just add them as module scripts in here. And you can use parallel services as well, but you don't have to. You can just use normal services, and the same goes with the client. And basically what happens inside of the client and the server script is that it gets the module loader, and then it starts, uses the start function in the module loader, which starts all the modules, and then it initializes them, and then blah blah blah. It loads and then initializes and then it starts them, but this basically just calls that, and then it takes in the folder services. So everything inside of here, it basically starts loading. Of course, it checks if it's a module script. So you can just go ahead and add as many as you want in there, and it'll work perfectly fine. And then lastly, we just have sound service, which is just to show you how you can organize your sounds as well. So this is just one way of structuring and organizing your game, and this way you are, that what you're making is at least organized to a certain extension, and you can just add, it should be easy enough to, once you've got the grip on it, to be able to add your own stuff to the system. And some of these utils you might not use just off the bat, but they'll come in handy later when you got to do certain stuff. And some of them are basically like must-haves for every module, every services. Like for example, the promise library, signal, trove, all those are just really, really useful. And yeah, without further ado, I think that's all for this video. Again, you can grab the RBXM file on my Discord server. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.